Hello friends, today we will tell you about the painter whose paintings were eaten by people. So let's get started. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss any interesting stories from different parts of the world. Also like the video and write in the comments, what do you think about the story? Isaac Levitin, born in 1800, was one of the most prominent landscape painters of the 19th century. But his success was short-lived. He died at the peak of his career. His paintings are now worth millions of dollars, but back then they were sold for mere pennies. During his lifetime, Isaac Levitin was poor and hungry. What is it all about? How did it happen? Let's find out. Isaac Levitin was born in poverty. When he was just 2 years old, his father abandoned the family and they were left with nothing. The boy's mother had no choice but to remarry. And when Isaac turned 8, he moved in with his adoptive father, who worked as a miller. Soon, the boy began to help his father in his work, but all Isaac wanted was to draw. When the boy was 13 years old, he left school and went to work at a factory. In his spare time, he attended art classes. However, after 3 years, he was forced to quit because his adoptive father found out that he had been attending art classes instead of working at the factory. At that point, Isaac decided to run away from home and move to St. Petersburg. In St. Petersburg, Isaac made a living doing odd jobs and selling his drawings on the street. Despite being poor, Isaac managed to attend art classes at the Imperial Academy of Arts. There he met Alexei Venetzianov, a famous Russian painter who became his mentor. Alexei helped Isaac improve his skills and also bought him art supplies. It was Alexei who encouraged Isaac to paint landscapes, since he believed that this genre was underrepresented in Russia. At first, Isaac didn't know where to look for inspiration, so he painted imaginary landscapes. But later, Alexei advised him to go outside and draw from nature, which was something of a revelation for Isaac. The young artist started to spend more time outdoors than indoors. He would walk barefoot through the fields, forests, and along the banks of the Neva River, sketching everything he saw. Isaac's hard work paid off. His paintings quickly gained recognition and were displayed at various exhibitions. Despite his success, Isaac continued to live in poverty. He spent all his money on art supplies and food. One day, Isaac decided to visit his adoptive parents. He had not seen them in many years and wanted to find out how they were doing. But when he arrived home, he heard voices coming from inside the house. As he listened carefully, he realized that his adoptive parents were arguing. "I need some money," said Isaac's adoptive mother. "Where am I supposed to get it from?" "You already spent all mine," replied her husband. Isaac was heartbroken. He was ready to give them anything, even all the money he earned in a year. But he couldn't just barge into the house and shout at them. So he stood outside the window and cried. Meanwhile, Isaac's paintings became very popular and critics were already calling him a genius. His work caught the eye of Pavel Tretyakov, the founder of the Tretyakov Gallery. He wanted to buy one of Isaac's paintings, but the artist refused to sell it. Pavel kept showing up at Isaac's house uninvited and asking him to sell the painting, but the artist still refused. Pavel got so angry that he made a scene in front of Isaac's neighbors. They sided with the famous collector and soon the poor artist was left with no one to turn to. He had never been good with money, and now he was completely ruined. One evening, Isaac came home from the studio hungry and went to look for food. He opened the cupboard and saw that there was nothing to eat. Then he remembered that his friend Joseph had invited him over for dinner that evening, and he decided to go there. But when Isaac arrived at Joseph's house, he heard a knock on the door and smelled delicious food. Looking through the peephole, Isaac saw a woman opening the door to Joseph's apartment. She had a tablecloth in her hands. Isaac hesitated for a moment, then knocked on the door. The woman opened it and screamed, "You're early," and slammed the door shut. Isaac heard Joseph's voice saying, "It's okay, Anna, he's here to pick up the painting." Then the woman came back to the door, took the tablecloth and gave it to Isaac. It was obvious that the food was on the other side of the door. Isaac thanked Joseph and hurried home. He looked at the tablecloth and realized that it was a piece of his own painting that Joseph had borrowed earlier. It wasn't just a painting, it was the one he had been working on for months. Isaac felt betrayed and offended. He didn't understand why Joseph had done this to him. The next day, Isaac went to Joseph's house to get his painting back, but he was told that Joseph was out of town. Isaac waited, but Joseph didn't come back for a whole week. The entire time, Isaac didn't eat or leave the house. He was desperate. He needed food, and most importantly, he needed to finish the painting that Joseph had ruined. Finally, Joseph returned, and Isaac demanded that he return his painting immediately. "What painting?" Joseph asked. "This one," Isaac replied, holding up the tablecloth. Joseph looked at it, pretended to be surprised, and said, "Oh, I thought you gave me this as a gift. I'm sorry. I didn't know you needed it back." Then he grabbed the tablecloth and tore it into pieces. Isaac was shocked. He couldn't believe that someone could destroy such a beautiful work of art. But Joseph didn't stop there. He dipped pieces of the painting into a bowl of soup and started eating them. "Why are you doing this?" Isaac asked, horrified. "Because it's delicious," Joseph replied casually between bites. It turned out that Joseph wasn't just eating Isaac's painting, he was actually enjoying it. He told the artist that it tasted like wild strawberries and that he had never experienced such a unique flavor before. After finishing the last piece of the painting, Joseph wiped his mouth with a napkin and said to Isaac, "Don't worry, I'll make you another one." But Isaac didn't want another painting. He wanted the original back. However, Joseph didn't listen and started tearing up another piece of canvas. The poor artist tried to stop him, but Joseph didn't let him. Soon, the floor was covered with scraps of canvas, and Isaac watched helplessly as Joseph ate his work. He was so overwhelmed with grief that he didn't even resist when Joseph tore up the last piece of the painting. The artist rushed to the window and threw himself onto the street below. When Joseph realized what had happened, he ran after Isaac, but he was too late. People gathered around the body of the artist, and doctors arrived, but they could do nothing. Isaac was dead. Joseph was devastated. He hadn't meant to hurt Isaac. He just really liked the taste of the painting and thought that the artist wouldn't mind. But he was wrong. Today, we could only guess why Joseph liked the taste of Isaac's painting so much. Some say that it was because the artist used special paints that contain plant extracts. Others claim that it was just an ordinary canvas that Isaac had primed in an unusual way. But the most common version is that the painting simply had a strange taste. Be that as it may, Joseph's actions caused a scandal. People were outraged by the fact that he had destroyed such a talented artist's work and accused him of being crazy. Meanwhile, Isaac's paintings began to be sold for exorbitant prices. Over time, Joseph's life improved and he even opened his own gallery. But he never forgot the guilt he felt for destroying Isaac's work. And that's all for today. We hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you won't miss any interesting stories from different parts of the world. Also, like the video and write in the comments what do you think about the story.